The rescue drones descended through Theta 9's crimson atmosphere like mechanical angels, their sensors scanning the desolate mining outpost that had gone silent 17 days ago. The Galactic Survey Corps had written off the station as another casualty of the frontier, a human monitoring post swallowed by the planet's unforgiving wilderness, but protocols demanded investigation. The lead drone's camera feed transmitted back to the orbiting vessel, revealing breached walls and shattered equipment. Solar panels hung crooked, their surfaces scoured by the planet's acidic winds. The communications array lay twisted and dead, explaining the silence that had prompted this mission. Then the thermal scanners detected something impossible. Life signs, multiple, clustered in the central HAB unit. The drones adjusted their approach, optical sensors focusing as they maneuvered through a gap in the outer wall. What they captured would be studied, debated, and ultimately preserved in the archives of xenobiology and human achievement for generations to come. Reyna sat propped against the far wall of the HAB unit, her emergency thermal blanket wrapped around her shoulders. But she wasn't alone. 7 juvenile theta predators, creatures the xenobiologists had designated as apex nightmares in their initial reports, were curled around her body. The largest one, a cub with distinctive silver markings along its spine, rested directly under her chin, its massive paws splayed across her chest. The others formed a living blanket across her lap and legs, their rhythmic breathing synchronized with hers. She was alive. Against every statistical probability, every environmental hazard, every reason the universe had for killing a stranded human on a hostile world, Reyna lived. The drone's advanced AI struggled to process the scene. These creatures were documented killing machines, evolved to hunt in packs across Theta 9's brutal landscape. Their adult forms stood nearly 3 meters tall, possessed acidic saliva, and maintained strictly territorial behavior. They didn't bond. They didn't protect outsiders. Yet here they slept, peaceful as domesticated pets, guarding the human who should have been their prey. Reyna's eyes fluttered open at the drone's humming approach. For a moment, confusion crossed her gaunt features, then recognition, then something that might have been laughter if she'd had the strength for it. "Took you long enough," she whispered, her voice hoarse from disuse. The cub under her chin, Keru she'd named him, stirred at her words, letting out a small chirp of protest before settling back down. The rescue team arrived within the hour, a full xenobiological hazard squad that approached the scene with weapons drawn and every protocol engaged. They found Reyna conscious but severely dehydrated, malnourished, and suffering from 3 separate infections. They also found her absolutely refusing to move until they guaranteed the cubs' safety. "They're not leaving without me," she stated, her voice carrying an edge that made veteran soldiers pause. "And I'm not leaving without them." The cubs, sensing potential threat, had arranged themselves defensively around Reyna, their adolescent growls rumbling through the damaged HAB unit. Keru remained pressed against her chest, his silver spine ridges raised, his golden eyes fixed on the armored figures with surprising intelligence. It took Dr. Vex, the expedition's xenobiologist, 3 hours to piece together what had happened from Reyna's fragmented account in the station's partial logs. The communications failure had come. First, a micrometeorite strike that Reyna couldn't repair alone. Then the main generator had failed, leaving her with emergency power only. She'd sent distress signals, but Theta 9's magnetic interference was notorious for swallowing transmissions. Then came the night she heard scratching at the outer airlock. Standard protocol said never open the door. Standard protocol assumed you wanted to live, but Reyna had watched through the security feed as a wounded adult theta predator collapsed outside the station, 7 small cubs crying around their dying mother. The female had been caught in a territorial dispute, her body torn and bleeding, and she was using her last strength to guide her offspring to the only shelter for kilometers, the human outpost. Reyna had opened the door. She'd dragged the mother inside, knowing it was suicide. She'd used her medical supplies meant for human injuries, trying to stabilize an alien creature that outweighed her 4 times over. The cubs had watched, terrified and defensive, as this strange bipedal being worked frantically to save the only parent they knew. The mother died 3 hours later, and then Reyna had made a choice that defied every survival instinct evolution had given humanity. Instead of sealing herself away and hoping the cubs would leave, she'd stayed with them. She'd shared her dwindling food rations, modified the protein synthesizer to create something their digestive systems could process. She'd learned their sounds, their moods, their fears. Keru had been the first to approach, driven by curiosity or perhaps some instinct that recognized a caretaker when he saw one. The others had followed. For 17 days, Reyna had kept 7 juvenile apex predators alive while slowly starving herself. She'd maintained life support, rationed water, and somehow impossibly taught them trust. She'd sung to them when they cried in the night. She'd let them sleep against her for warmth when the backup heating failed. She'd made herself their mother because they had none. Their children, she told Dr. Vex simply, as if that explained everything. Perhaps it did. The evacuation became a negotiation. The cubs wouldn't be left behind. Reyna's condition was non-negotiable on that point. The Survey Corps found itself orchestrating the first-ever relocation of juvenile Theta predators, an operation that required 3 shuttles and more sedatives than anyone thought safe. Keru refused sedation entirely, staying pressed against Reyna's chest through the entire ascent. His small claws carefully retracted to avoid hurting her. The story spread through the galactic network like wildfire. Humanity's reputation for stubbornness was already legendary, but this was something different. This was a human who'd looked at the universe's cruelty and answered with compassion, who'd chosen connection over survival, love over logic. Reyna recovered in the medical bay, the cubs in a specially constructed habitat adjacent to her room. She visited them daily during rehabilitation, and they pressed against the transparent barrier, crying until she could touch them. Keru, always the boldest, would place his paw exactly where her hand met the glass. Other species studied the incident, trying to understand the human capacity for irrational kindness. The Vrex Collective called it dangerously illogical. The Harmonious Accord termed it strategic empathy cultivation. The Gen Imperium simply marked humans as unpredictable, potentially allied. But Reyna had a simpler explanation, given months later when she and 7 full-grown Theta predators were cleared for habitation on a terraformed sanctuary world. They needed someone. I was there. That's what we do. Keru, now massive and magnificent with his silver spine fully developed, remained at her side, his great head level with her shoulder. In his golden eyes lived the memory of a small cub finding warmth against a stranger's chest, and learning that sometimes across all the vast darkness between stars, kindness answers when you cry. That perhaps more than any warship or technological marvel was why the galaxy had learned to respect humanity. Not because they conquered, because they cared.